Hi everybody, welcome back. The video today is all about one of the silent reasons that a lot of dogs end up having either separation or dependency based behaviours, and that has to do with the subject of doggy doors. Let's talk about it and figure out why. I'm Claude from Canine IQ Dog Training. Thank you for coming back to the website. If you're a regular visitor to the channel, I really appreciate your support. It's humbling that people like to hear what I have to say. If you're a new visitor and you like the content, please hit the subscribe button, but more importantly, hit the bell notification. That way you don't miss out on any of the future posts. So the video today is all about doggy doors. What are the benefits and what are the downsides of it? And typically when we install a doggy door, we're of the mindset that we want the dog to spend a significant amount of time inside the house. And while effectively I don't have a problem with it from a dog ownership point of view, I do have a problem with it from a dog psychology or dependency or behaviour point of view, which effectively the more dogs spend time in and around our human environment, the less likely they are to be comfortable spending time away from us when effectively they need to be away from us. Now, separation issues are only noticed when they get displayed. All dogs have separation issues, but they get manifested when the dogs can't get access to us. And while it's important to give the dog this little bit of autonomy to make a decision, we need to understand at what cost does the autonomy happen. Because effectively, the minute that we've got the dog predominantly inside the house and we're giving it access to go in and out, we are giving the dog permission to effectively manage its own stress levels and manage its own arousal levels and manage its own dependency levels. But if we don't teach it how to do that in a structured, constructive way, it's actually doing that based on how it feels at the time. And that's a problem because dogs will self-medicate. So if they feel like they need a pat, they will come up and get a pat. If they feel like they need to be away from us for a particular reason because they don't like what's going on, they'll do that. If they feel like they need to be around you and you're leaving and you're going to work, they will act out accordingly. Now, all of those are behaviours that effectively are intended by the dog to remove pressure and to remove stress. And unless we give the dogs the right tools, they're doing it in a way that actually promotes a more enhanced problem going forward. So a lot of the issues around separation issues, if we're doing this properly, or a lot of the behaviour around separation issues, is all about giving the dog constructive tools. So I'm really big on trying to get the dog to understand that it can remove pressure in a way that actually makes the problem better and not makes the problem worse. The other reason why doggy doors are effectively a problem is it creates a significantly great divide between indoors and outdoors. Now, those of you that have actually seen my previous video on why dogs hate that backyard, you'll realise that if the dog treats the backyard as effectively a toilet, or it goes out and it just goes to the toilet and then it comes back inside the house, or it gets put outside because we want the dog to be outside while we're at work, we're effectively creating a stark contrast between what the inside is and what the outside is. And if the inside effectively becomes the place that's the most amazing place on the planet for the dog, and it's stable and it's calm and it's got human odour and it's warm and it's got food smells, and then outside is simply this place that's cold and wet, it's miserable, and I go there to go to the toilet, no dog would effectively want to go outside. And doggy doors promote that behaviour because the dogs will naturally gravitate to a place that we develop the most constant relationship with them. And if that happens to be inside, then all we're doing with the backyard is treating it like a toilet. Not a really good thing. The other reason why doggy doors are effectively a bit of a problem is that dogs that are geared to spend most of the time inside the house are effectively on a hiding to nothing. And what I mean by that is the environment in a house is only activated by the people in that house. So when people are home, the environment's quite dynamic. There's movement, it's vibrant, things are happening, food gets prepared, there's noise, there's music, there's singing, there's talks, there's screaming, there's yelling, all sorts of dynamic. And these are the things that dogs relate back to. As soon as people leave, the house becomes a pretty passive environment. So a lot of dogs miss that human interaction when they're not home. So there's a stark contrast between people home and people not home. That's a bit of a problem. If we look at the outside by comparison, and whether we like it or not, dogs are effectively born to be outdoors. And I'm not saying put your dog outside, I'm just trying to talk about the big picture issue here. So if dogs are outside, the whole environment outdoors from morning to night is continuously changing. You get different light quality throughout the day. You get different temperature ranges throughout the day. You get wind, you get birds, you get insects. So the whole environment itself is quite dynamic, and there's a lot of things simply by being in that environment can help the dog actually deal with interaction with it. So whether we do anything or not in the environment itself produces some degree of stimulation for a dog. If we then enhance that environment, like I showed you on the previous video about the backyard, that environment itself now becomes a really stimulating place. So by comparison, outdoors needs to be better than indoors. And then you've got this balance between the backyard being amazing and the house being, okay, well, it's cool to be here, but it's not as much fun as the backyard. The minute we allow the dogs to spend a predominant amount of time inside and to use the doggy door to get access to go to the toilet, we're undoing a lot of that good work, and it significantly promotes separation or dependency-based behaviours, which is not a good thing for the dog going forward to promote independence and confidence. So if we look at this a little bit further, you could actually say that doggy doors, while we're trying to do it with all the best intentions to give them autonomy, actually produce a higher degree of dependency than independency. Because sure, we're letting them go in and out, but I guarantee most dogs that spend most of their time inside the house and that use a doggy door to go to the toilet, if they happen to be outside and you close the doggy door, watch what that dog does. It spends a lot of its time trying to figure out how to get back in through that doggy door, and it starts to stress and it starts to panic because it can't come back in. That's a problem, because the dog effectively wants to be back in this environment and it's not comfortable in another environment. That's a dependency-based behaviour. So in an ideal world, if we have a dog that's comfortable inside, comfortable outside, and for some reason it's actually managed to use a doggy door appropriately, if the dog's outside and we're closing the doggy door, it should just go, cool. It's not time to get back in, and it might just calm down and relax outside. But that unfortunately doesn't happen. So we need to look at the bigger picture and try and make the dog realise that outside is far more than just a toilet. And unfortunately, doggy doors promote the stereotype of the backyard being not such a cool place. It's not all doom and gloom. Dogs that potentially have weak bladders, and they spend some time outside during the day, but they need to sleep inside the house. Using a doggy door in that situation can be quite beneficial, because the last thing you want is to be woken at 3 a.m. because your dog needs to go to the toilet. So dogs effectively with weak bladders, once we've actually trained them to go to the toilet at night time, they can let themselves out and come back inside the house. So there is an inherent benefit. That's effectively the only reason why I would use a doggy door, is to facilitate toileting if my dog needs to, simply because it has a weak bladder or a particular reason that it just wants to go outside at night time. But I definitely would not be using it or advocating it day to day going forward. There are far more better ways that we can actually get a dog to realise how to be indoors and how to be outdoors. Food for thought, guys. Okay, guys, in conclusion, so we've talked about doggy doors today. Hopefully this was a video that made a bit of sense to a few people. It's not my job to tell people how to live or whether they should or shouldn't use doggy doors. It is my job, however, to tell people that if you do a certain thing, you'll get a certain response going back. And doggy doors, for my experience, produce far more negative side effects than positive side effects. And I like to have training methodologies that produce a lot of positive side effects and not so many negative ones. So separation issues are effectively something that we need to look at quite seriously. The entry level to separation issues is effectively just low level barking, doing sort of things to get attention, a little bit of stress when you leave. They then progress to more dysfunctional behaviours, where the dogs start to do more neurotic things like urinating or marking for attention or destructive chewing. And the last stage that you really don't want to get to with separation issues is to start to get to the point of self-mutilation or really bad behaviours that produce negative issues or harm to your dog. That's not cool. And the problem with separation issues is we don't know where the dog is in the spectrum from the beginning to end, and it's a pretty slippery slope. So separation issues is something that we need to target pretty seriously and look at pretty seriously. Hope you found the video useful to a degree. If you have any questions or comments, please don't be afraid to leave me a comment. I will definitely answer you. If you've got a dog that has got separation issues and you have a doggy door and you want to have some feedback or questions, by all means leave me a comment. And if you believe that what I'm saying about doggy doors is not true and you have comments or views about it, please, again, leave me a comment. And I'll see if I can address it and give you some more information on what I think is appropriate. Thanks again for coming back to the YouTube channel, guys. Really appreciate your support. As always, thanks again. Talk to you soon.
So did you like the content? If so, please hit the subscribe, like and share button, and don't forget to hit the bell button for future notifications of any new videos. Thanks for watching.